Welcome to the Saturday Cup of Joe podcast. This podcast is dedicated to EAS employees of the U.S. Postal Service and members of the National Association of Postal Supervisors. So, pour yourself a cup of coffee and join us for today's episode. And now, here's your host, Robert Wakefield.
Good morning, Branch 32, and good morning to our EAS friends across the country. Thank you so much for listening, and welcome to the Saturday Cup of Joe podcast, presented by the Nashville Post Office Credit Union. I'm your host, Robert Wakefield, president of Branch 32. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, got a great show lined up for you, so let's go ahead and let's pour that first cup. Have you visited our website lately? The Nashville Post Office Credit Union's website makes banking easy. You can complete transactions, you can apply for some loans, and now you can explore our brand new events page created to honor our 100th anniversary. Stay connected with updates, celebrations, and special member-exclusive events. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram to stay even more connected. Visit npocu.org. The Nashville Post Office Credit Union, people helping people since 1925. And for our first cup this morning, we want to pick up where we left off from the last podcast, which is talking about the Telecon Improvement Program. And just as a refresher, I wanted to go over some of the things that we touched on last week before we get into the steps this week. Last week, we touched on how many of today's telecons and Zoom meetings that are held between postal management and employees are professionally led. There are thousands of these calls that take place, and many are beneficial. Now, some of them are not beneficial, but there are times where these Zoom meetings are not productive, and where the presiding leader uses, tactics and techniques that are abusive or demeaning or even threatening. It's just something that's been going on too long, and it seems like it's getting worse. So what I wanted to do today, I wanted to go over the 4 steps that you use to actually file a complaint that you have been abused or someone else has been abused on a telecon. Now, before I do that, let's talk about the 2 definitions that we had last week about bullying. Workplace bullying. This is coming from the Occupational Health and Safety and Welfare Act of 1986. This is what it says. Workplace bullying means any behavior that is repeated, systematic, and directed towards an employee or a group of employees that a reasonable person having regard to the circumstances would expect to victimize, humiliate, undermine, or threaten, and which creates a risk to health and safety. Many, many people are getting bullied on these Zoom meetings. It's just no question about that. So we define that, and then we define what profanity is, and we call it swearing. In the South, we call it cussing, all right? But profanity can take the forms of words. It can take the form of expressions. It can be gestures, such as flipping off the middle finger, for example. That is profanity defined. So we have a plan in place in NAPS to deal with this. Now, here's step number 1. When you are in a Zoom meeting or a telecon where bullying or the use of any kind of threatening or abusive or profane language is used in that setting, we need you to report it to NAPS headquarters. Now, the things that you would include in that would be the name of the postal district where the Zoom meeting or telecon took place. It would be the name and the title of the postal official who was in charge of that telecon. And then you would need the names of all the attendees or the offices that were on the telecon. And, of course, the date and time when it was held. The other thing that you need to mention is the problem with the telecon and the Zoom meeting in specific terms, such as the actual language that was used. If people were threatened, who were they? And if anyone on the telecon was bullied or abused in any way. So that's step one. You document the incident. And you know what? You don't have to be the one that is being bullied to use this form. If you hear something that another employee has been abused on, and you've got all these names, all these offices on the telecon, you can do this on their behalf. And I would encourage you to do so. We've got to put a stop to this bullying on telecons. It's ridiculous. These things are supposed to be useful. They're supposed to be helpful. If you want to call, if you're my boss and you want to call and yell at me, fine. Don't do it in front of all my peers. There's where the problem comes. All right. I'm sorry, I'm preaching here. So step one, document the incident. And then step two, you send that information to NAP's headquarters. Once a member, now be sure it's a member. Once a member has completed all the information that they ask for to the questions that we just talked about, that information contained in the report should be sent, and it should be sent from a non-postal computer to NAP's headquarters at NAP's HQ at naps.org. Now, the reason for the non-postal computer is obvious. There's no guarantee of privacy when you put that on the postal emails. So it just makes good sense to do this from your home email. And you have to let NAP's headquarters know, because that's the second step, and that's the only way that this is going to happen. Now, what NAPS does with it is the 3 resident officers are designated areas that they are responsible for, and they will take it from there. So that's why you send it to NAPS headquarters. Now, step 3 is the follow-up by NAPS headquarters. The resident officers will look at the report filed by the member through that web address that I told you about, napshq at naps.org. They are, back when this presentation was done, they were anticipating that many of the reports will be provided by our own members, and they may lack some of the details that NAPS needs to make contact with local district officials. Okay, so be sure that when you fill that form out that you are thorough and complete in that whole thing. Please provide a contact number, cell is preferred, and the best time that you can be contacted in a local time. Designated resident officer who will be handling reports from your geographic area. That's the one who will call you. And this follow-up will assist the resident officers in ensuring that all the facts are on hand before moving forward. So it's very important that when you fill that form out that you do it, you fill it out completely. And then the fourth step is the resolution. This is how this is going to be resolved, we hope. The resident officer will make contact with district officials. It's expected that this matter will be addressed locally and that the problem be resolved. Now, that's a big if. Depends on who you're contacting in the district. So it's hoped that once the district officials are made aware of it, that district officials will take action. There's going to be some kind of a measurement system at NAPS headquarters that will benchmark the success, relying on each NAPS members' expectations on how they should be treated on telecons and Zoom meetings. If the reported problems don't appear to be remedied, you should initiate initial contact with NAPS headquarters and report the problem again. Okay? So that's good to know. If it's not any better after you have talked to the NAPS resident officers and the district people aren't doing what they're supposed to do, send the report in again. Because if these problems aren't fixed, then the resident officers need to know about it. And if the resident officers are not successful in resolving it at the district level, it's their intention to elevate the issue until it's resolved. They'll go to the area. And if the area doesn't do anything, they'll go to USPS headquarters. It's just really important that these steps be followed any time that anybody is abused on a telecon. Listen, there's telecons that are lasting 3 or 4 hours a day. How can you possibly be productive when you're listening to someone drone on about a problem that happened to an office 50 miles from you? It's just incredible what you people are going through. All right. So here's one other thing that I wanted to mention. You need to mention this to other NAPS members. If you're listening to this and you're not a NAPS member, you need to join today. You are one bad decision away from being disciplined. Don't get caught that way. So if you're a NAPS member, be sure that you are promoting this initiative that if anybody is being abused on a telecon or a Zoom meeting, be sure you fill out these steps. Now, here's where you can go. napsbranch32.org has all of this information. It even has the form there waiting for you to download and fill out. So download that to your home computer, fill it out from home, and send it in. Listen, folks, there's no reason, none, that you have to put up with this kind of behavior. And I am hoping that by letting you know about this Telecon improvement program, that things are going to get better. All right, that's the first cup. Let's go ahead and pour that second cup. Big news, National Post Office Credit Union members. Meet Ollie, your brand new virtual assistant, here to make banking easier than ever. Whether you need account information or loan details or just a quick answer, Ollie's ready to help you 24/7. Live chat and tech support instantly at your fingerprints. Visit npocu.org and start chatting with Ollie today. The Nashville Post Office Credit Union, people helping people since 1925. And for our second cup, I cannot believe that tomorrow is June the 1st, 2025. Wow. Where is this year going? You know, it's so funny. Well, my friend that wrote the Sunday Coffee Cake always had the obscure holidays as part of his writing. And it was really good. So I thought what I would do is I would see, okay, what's the obscure holiday for June 1st? And Brian Wagner, you might want to pay attention to this. It's kind of a unique take on ice cream. Are you ready? It's National Frozen Yogurt Day. That's right. Frozen yogurt. You know it. You love it. You can't live without it. So how do you celebrate National Frozen Yogurt Day? Well, you have some frozen yogurt. Better still, share some with your family and friends. You can even, I'm reading this off the internet. You can just check it out yourself. It says, have a frozen yogurt party. Have people over and serve some frozen yogurt. It's so interesting how these holidays come about. The International Frozen Yogurt Association, or the IFA, created this day. And at the time that they created it, there were a couple of dates that they had, but they chose this one in the summertime because it's just really a great time to enjoy frozen yogurt. So there is your obscure holiday for the day in the second cup. We always want the second cup to be a little lighter. Maybe this time we're going to be a little frozen. What do you say? All right. That's going to do it today. Thank you so much for listening to the Saturday Cup of Joe podcast presented by the Nashville Post Office Credit Union. Now, you know what to do. I tell you every week to share, subscribe. Let me know what branch you're listening from. I've heard from a few of you. I'd like to hear from a few more. So, you can visit us at SaturdayCupOfJoe@gmail.com. You can send all your questions there. We'll get to them sometime. All right, thanks so much for listening. And remember, every great weekend starts with a great cup of Joe. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to the Saturday Cup of Joe podcast. Please note that the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of Robert Wakefield and do not necessarily reflect the views of the National Association of Postal Supervisors. We welcome your questions and comments, so send those to SaturdayCupOfJoe@gmail.com.